Hello, I'm Erin from The Witch of Saturn, and I'm here with Jay from Iridescent Tarot and our very special guest, Kyla Givehand. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyla.
Thank you for having me, Aaron and Jay. I'm really excited about this. I'm like giddy with excitement. So, I'm taking lots of deep breaths over here.
Yeah, so happy to have you here.
Yeah, so the way that this came about is kind of cool, and it just shows how interconnected our community really is. Because so Jay and I have been doing this series called Deck Connectors Club, and I don't know, maybe a month ago now or a few weeks ago, she had sent me a screenshot saying, "Oh my gosh, look, someone on Instagram is doing like a challenge on deck connecting." And I recognized your name right away because we are both lucky to be in Jamie Sawyer's inner circle. Yeah. And Jamie and I had taken Kristen Radden's magical playbook course that
Uh-huh.
you hosted last year, I think it was, which was great. So I was like, oh my gosh, well, let me see. I'm like, I'll reach out to Kyla and be like, do you remember me? Or know who I am? And would you be willing to come and join us to kind of talk about, do a special episode of, we usually call this Three of Moms
Mhm.
Tarot when we bring in someone else onto our channel because we do a Two of Moms tarot thing. And we were just talking about like, well, how does that apply? Because there are people who maybe haven't raised children, but still, I think, can identify as the mother archetype, or like you were saying, are non-traditional
Mhm.
mothers, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I raised my nephew, my biological nephew. My husband and I raised him. Um, and for all intents and purposes, I'm like, I did all the mothering,
Mm,
all
sure.
his mother also, his biological mother was also very much hands-on and very present and very, right. But she also was very like, go over here with your auntie. She's going to handle
Yeah.
it. So
Hmm.
I like to say she and I co-parented before co-parenting was a thing, and now he's 35. He would hate it for me to be saying he's a kid. He is definitely not a kid. He has a kid of his own. And so that sort of non-traditional mothering absolutely gave me, because I don't have biological children, but gave me the ability to do what I think a lot of mamas do with, I mean, I did all the first teeth and the first haircut. My husband actually gave him his first haircut. I mean, we have a very strong, uh, I always say he's my nephew's son. And he calls me my auntie mama. And so
Oh,
we have a very bonded sort of relationship. And then also, I am primary caregiver of my 81-year-old mama. And that is pretty much like having a child some days. I love you, mama, but some days, some days it is like that.
Yeah, do a little role reversal
Yeah,
there, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I love that. And I love that we had an opportunity to kind of talk about that. And I think that even that everyone is in some way mothering, right? Whether it's being a caregiver or even this idea of like what we birth out into the world. Because, like, speaking of Jamie Sawyer,
Uh-huh.
she is not a parent, but she is creating constantly.
So
And
much.
right, so much, just birthing so much out into the
Yeah.
world. And also, fulfilling that role within her extended family or with friends. And so
Mhm.
I have wanted to on our channel kind of address that you don't
Mhm.
have to be a biological parent to be
Exactly.
a mother, or even to,
Yeah.
any gender can embody the mother archetype too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the Empress card in full swing,
yes.
right? It's that big belly full of, I mean, my favorite Empress card is from Light Seers, right? But that big belly with the world on it. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes we're just birthing things into the world, and that is, and they're like our babies. I'm sure Jamie looks at each one of her decks as like a
Oh,
child that she has that she's brought into
Hmm.
the world. Yeah.
yeah. So, and that's something that I think we are all currently doing with this,
Mhm.
with deck connecting, right? These kind of structures that we've created
Mhm.
around that. So, I am so excited to hear what made you want to do a challenge on deck connecting.
Yeah, so this is a funny story. So first of all, I have to say, you talking about like how we are all connected, Jay seeing the image and then coming to you
Yeah.
and you're like, I know her, and then Jamie and the way we're connected, and then through Kristen, and that just makes me, I don't know, it gives me such, makes my heart smile because that connection piece, like it's the one thing that I love about social media is the way that we can all find each other. So all of that to say, it was literally in the middle of packing up to move. I realized, oh my gosh, I have so many decks, boxes and boxes and boxes. And I kept going, I need one more box for my decks. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've given you like 7 boxes for you. How many boxes? And then I just started looking and I was like, oh wow, I've got a lot of boxes and all of them are filled with decks. Now, I feel justified in some ways that I'm also someone who teaches a class on how to create decks. So I use a lot of decks as examples of here are some options, here's some ideas, here's different themes in decks, different concepts, different ways that people have handled certain types of cards, blah, blah, blah. So I use a lot of it for teaching. But this challenge was really about, I mean, everything I do is kind of like I'm doing it for me and I'm inviting others along on the
Yeah.
journey. And I thought, as I was packing up those decks, I was realizing some of those decks I have not touched since the month that I bought them.
Mm.
We're talking years ago. We're talking decades, okay, at this point for some of them. And I started, true story, full transparency, I started to be disappointed in myself. And I don't want to
Mhm.
be disappointed in myself. Like if other people are disappointed in me, I kind of go, okay, that's on them. But I felt disappointed in myself that I had all of these decks that I love, that I say I love, that I just am not using. I have like my tried and true 10 or 12 that stay in rotation. And I was like, oh, this is a problem. This is a real problem. So a part of it was wanting to reconnect to my own decks and recognizing that, and also not wanting to be disappointed in myself that I've accumulated and amassed so many decks. I feel very blessed and lucky. Some of them have been gifted, but
Mhm.
most of them I've purchased, and I feel blessed that I've had the means to do that, but also it happened in a month when the focus of our theme in my community right now is overconsumption. And I was like, yeah, the irony is not lost on me.
Good there.
That we are studying a theme of overconsumption specifically as the block to wealth building is kind of
Mm.
how, right? And so I'm like, oh, so all these little decks are just little energetic blocks to my wealth building because I have so many. And it's not about acquiring them. That is what I was disappointed in myself about. It's that I'm not using them, that I'm not touching them or connecting to them in any way year after year after year after year. And I just felt,
Yeah.
yeah, I felt a little disappointed in myself. So I created the challenge and then I thought, I'm sure I'm not the only person, even if other people aren't like disappointed in themselves about it, but I'm sure I'm not the only person with this many decks. I know there are people who have way more decks than I do. And I know that there's only 365 days in a year,
Mhm.
and I am upwards of, I almost cringe to say it publicly, but I'm if you add my tarot and my Lenormand and my Oracle and my inspiration decks and clump them all together, I'm upwards of 300 decks, right? And so
Mhm.
like, even if I use a different deck every single day, right, to touch them, it would require that. So it's like, okay, let's just give them a little bit of love in the month of October. So that's kind of that's a long-winded answer of how it all
No,
came.
it's great.
It's an excellent answer because the deck connecting thing that we're all trying to kind of deal with right now is so intertwined with deck collecting, right? It's like these two separate things. Like you have this deck collection, you want to connect with your decks. So like how do you merge these two things that we have going on? Because there's a lot of feelings about deck collecting. As you said, like it's very vulnerable to share how you felt about that. And I can totally see how you got to that point. The solution that you created in order to kind of like deal with that is a very proactive thing to do.
Thank you for that. I love that feedback, and I kind of think I needed that because I also there's a tiny little voice in my head that was like, oh, by doing this challenge, you're also promoting overconsumption of decks. Like now people are going to see all these decks from each other.
Oh.
Right. Because literally it is blowing my mind when I go each day and look at the hashtag. My mind is literally blown that people are sharing decks I've never seen. I'm like, how are
Yeah.
there decks I've never seen?
There's so
Yeah.
many. There's
It's
so
So
many
fun.
out
many.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like Jay and I have talked so much about being more mindful about bringing decks into our collections because it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh my gosh, that deck is so pretty, but like I'm just gonna add to cart,
Mhm.
right? And then being a little so part of why we started doing Deck Connectors Club was to not just connect to our decks, but to kind of try to figure out if the deck had a place in our collection. And this was inspired by this idea of kind of personifying decks, which I had never heard of.
Yes. Yes.
And Jay, who is much more has her finger on the pulse of like the tarot tube community more than I did until recently.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, I love this idea of having a hug deck or a rage deck or these different decks that serve different purposes. I'm like, I can really get down with that because we are so complex and ever changing, and our needs on a daily basis are not going to be the same. And so it's like, can I look at what I have and kind of figure out, like, well, what's your role? Like, what's your job, this deck? And there are some that are so multifaceted and multi-purpose. And those I think are the ones that maybe are in the constant rotation.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Yep.
just kind of exploring, not just using the deck, but kind of feeling out all of its different facets because
Mhm.
our structure is we take 5 days with one deck and
Mhm.
kind of flush out how it reads in a couple different ways. So we do a deck interview, and then we do it with a spread book. And then we do 2 days with pairing with an oracle because like one is not enough. One oracle might hit differently than another oracle, right? And I like that because then it brings oracles into the rotation a little bit more. And then
Yeah.
the last day we do a little bibliomancy where we pull a passage from a book and read with that.
Uh-huh.
And it's very interesting. Like, I love homework. Sounds like
Mhm.
you do too, as like a
Yeah.
teacher, right?
Yeah.
So it gives me a good structure of like, okay, this is a deck I'm working with this week. And some decks I'm doing some extra credit with. I'm like, oh, I want to keep reading with this more. Some I'm like, I need some space from this
Yeah.
deck for a few days. And it's just so interesting how they really do have a different vibe or energy that plays off of you as the reader.
That's why I pulled these two while you were talking, because this is over here, this is Playful Heart Tarot. And this over here, so I pulled a little selection of decks that cover some of Kyla's prompts that she included on her Connect with Your Decks challenge. And so this deck over here, I don't know its name because I've had it since I was 8 years old,
Oh my gosh,
but
I love that. And I love it. It's cute.
this is the first deck you ever read with number one prompt. And this is my Playful Heart Tarot, which is for me the deck that I reach for the most. And you can see clearly like the differences in the art style and what kind of reading that you might expect to have pulling these two different decks. They would be a very different experience for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you're showing them side by side like this too, because there are a couple of things that this is bringing up for me. First of all, one of the ways that I think about decks, you were talking about personifying them. I always say, when I'm teaching about tarot or oracle cards or any sort of intuitive reading, I always say that the decks have personalities and
Mm-hmm.
like having friends, the friend who's going to cry on the phone with you, and the friend who's going to be like, suck it up, let's go. We're not, no
Yep.
crying. We're not giving tears to that. Let's go. And I feel like the decks are like that. You know which one to go to when you really want that tough love, no pulling no punches, like just everything is in your face. And then the one you want to go to when you kind of need a soft landing and you don't necessarily need tough love. You need a little bit of nurturing instead of, something that might be a little more harsh or a little more, in your face. And the other thing that it brings up is the artwork. As an artist, the artwork is a big draw for me. When I see, it's one of the reasons why I adore the light seers. It's one of the reasons why I, have so many decks that for me are artistic decks. Like I could just sit and look at the imagery. If I had 78 little frames of art on my wall, it'd be sort of like that. And so I'm not necessarily an art collector, but I think my art collecting is through the medium of decks. It's right. I'm
Yes.
really getting 78 pieces of artwork from someone.
100%.
Yeah.
Each deck is like its own art gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go in and visit at any time. I do find that for me is can be dangerous because I'm like, they're all so beautiful. So I've tried to just be like, I don't know, really evaluate them more than let the artwork be the in point,
Mhm.
right? And then expand upon that because I was in a kind of a rut of I don't even know if I would call it a rut. It was just that my reading style for years and years and years was like, this is the deck I read with. I read
Mhm.
tarot with this deck. And then after a few years, I would kind of like outgrow it or I would need something different and I would go to like another deck. And then it was only very recently in the past year or two that I actually got into deck collecting.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then because I would get some decks, I'd be like, yeah, these are so pretty. I'd look through the artwork, but it would sit on my shelf because I would read with the deck I would read with. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it's an ever evolving process, but I do think that, man, the artwork is just like you're saying, it is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. And we have some amazing deck creators out there. The other thing is, just like with collecting art, when you're drawn to a particular deck creators or illustrators, artists, when you're drawn to their work, every deck they put out, you want it because this is the same as like collecting art from an artist whose work you love, right? Which is why I have all of Jamie's decks because I love her artwork. Jamie Sawyer and um Chris Ann Donnelly, I have all of hers and I have all of Joanna Powell Colbert because I love her artwork as well, right? So it's like I find the ones who are doing something that I think is really, really amazing. And yeah, I can't like I'm just waiting for the next one to drop, waiting for right.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter doesn't help, because
The
we want
FOMO
it
really
to
gets us. It really does.
FOMO. FOMO is something about the tarot world that like
Yes.
I wish would change. And Jamie and I have been talking a lot about this recently, where like I understand that the limited run of things, like I get it from a creator's standpoint, where
Yeah.
it's just like how many times can you keep putting, out the same deck or it in a different version? But like as a consumer, right? The idea that like if I don't buy it now, I might not be able to get it. It's
Yes.
very problematic.
Yeah.
It is.
Right?
Or you can get it, but you're gonna have to sell a kidney or something.
Right. Yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm watching Jay go through these two decks, and one of the things I'm noticing is how much I'm drawn to the artwork of both of them for different reasons, right? The playful heart is very speaking to my inner child. And whatever this one is on the right, which we
Yeah.
really kind of got to know what it is, Jay, at some point,
This
because
is so what I know about it is it originated at Barnes and Nobles. It was a set. I can try to dig up more info and put it in our description box, but that's all I know. There's no name or anything.
yeah, well, here's what's funny about it. I typically am not drawn to pip decks that don't have scenes on the pip cards, that just have, if it's five of wands, it's just five wands, or there's just, but this one's different. It's got,
It's
yeah, I feel like I could read with those pip cards, which is unusual for me. I usually, if I get a deck and it happens to be Pip, I just say, okay, this is just going to be a majors only deck that I'm working with. I don't opt
Mm.
with it. Yeah. So that's a really lovely.
This is one that is so sentimental to me that I don't read with it. So I can't speak to, how it reads now. It's just like the one to me that kind of started it all.
Yeah.
So I keep it as a sentimental token. And the deck, go ahead.
No, I just said I love that. I love that.
The deck that started me like actually learning tarot and deck collecting is the Starchild tarot.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So back in 20 or whenever this came out, I think it was around 2015, 2016 was when I finally took the leap and learned all the meanings. And it was because of the beautiful artwork in this deck. I had no idea that tarot could look like this. And if it weren't for this deck, who knows if I would have found something that sparked my interest enough to make me learn the 78 meanings all those years ago.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is this the deck that has a image that there's a card that looks a lot like David Bowie?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't heard that.
No,
No, is
I
it not?
know. Which one is that? I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know, but I know what you're talking about with the
But
David.
it has a similar sort of
Yeah,
ethereal,
cereal.
yeah, kind
Mhm.
of energy. Oh, I love this one. This is beautiful. I don't own this
I'm
one.
sorry if I'm going to be influencing you with my
Please
picks.
do. Please influence me. I'm happy to be influenced by decks.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
Oh, absolutely.
There's a few cards in this deck that look just like Khaleesi. I'll see if I can pull it
Very.
up. That's one, but there's one that's even more.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love this. The artwork is gorgeous.
And this artist is actually how Jay and I became friends and found each other,
Oh, wow.
searching for one of her other decks. So
I got that one right here.
here it goes.
I figured we'd get to this one too.
And Kyla, what you were saying about I call it like standing an artist, right? Where you just love all of the decks that they put out and you kind of like I'm like that with I have all Jamie's decks, but also with Lennox Reese, where I just kind of joke, I'm like, I would buy any deck that she puts out because I just love them so much. But there is part of me too that does know, and I think it's because of being such good friends with Jamie that like that's her livelihood. So I'm also more apt to, I do like the idea of being a patron of the arts of creators who are, making their living by it is not easy to make a deck. It's
Mhm.
78 works of art,
Yeah.
so I do think that there's a facet of that too that factors in sometimes with being a deck collector, right?
Yeah.
Mine is Zara from Kitten Chops. She could design dog food bags and I would buy them because of her art.
I
I've
love
said
that.
that before and I'll say it again. Like I will buy anything with her stuff on it.
I love that. And you said the words patron of the arts, and that just yes to that because it is that, especially for our indie produced decks, right? Because people, like you said, limited runs, people are either using Kickstarter or they're just sort of, throwing it out there on a pre-order and hoping,
Self-funding. Yeah.
yeah, hoping that people will back it and do the thing. And so for me, there is a certain support energy that I put out behind it, right? It's not, I have a couple of decks that I'm embarrassed to say I've never actually even opened the box once I got it. I literally bought them to support the artist. It didn't have any, it could have been, they could have sent me 78 blank cards. I
Yeah.
did simply to support them, right? Because I understand as a working artist, I understand what that looks like
Yeah.
to have your next meal be based on whether people buy a product from you or not. Yeah.
Mhm. And then so it's so complicated, right? Because there's so many different reasons that we decide to purchase and bring decks in to our collection, right? And then there's what happens from there,
Yeah.
which is are they sitting on the shelf? Are they getting used? Is it something that eventually we decide isn't for us and we rehome? There's a
Yeah.
lot of working parts to the whole thing. And that's why I like the idea of like this art of deck connecting to kind of figure out those either the roles or just the experience of working with a deck for a length of time, or like the practice or habit. Like I'm a big practice person because I'm a yogi, I'm a yoga teacher, and it's the idea of, that you are doing something, but there's this kind of spiritual element to the routine of working with decks with intention, right?
Mhm.
And so I love that we all kind of like came to that in different ways. So how has it been for you this month, like with this challenge?
Yeah. So it's so funny. When I put it out, one of my friends messaged me and she was like, "So you're doing a challenge the month that you moved to?" Because we moved to a different house so we could move my mother in, which meant I moved my house and I moved her house. So
Oh,
then merged two homes. And so my friend was like, "You do realize this is happening the same month that you will be just newly in your new place, right? I was like, I do recognize the insanity of this. However, it is also what has allowed me to, like, all of my decks are probably 95% of my decks are like out and available. I can kind of, get to them easily. And also when I put them back, now I have a better sense of like what's going where. And so this month for me has been eye-opening first and foremost. It's eye-opening in that I really didn't realize I had like when you tuck them away, you see all these little bins I have here, like
yeah.
there's about three of these that are just full of decks, right? So when it's tucked away and I can't really see them as right, and then I have the ones that I use pretty much, they're kind of up here on a hutch in front of me here. And then I have ones that kind of sit over here on the little stand, right? So I have the ones that I kind of keep accessible for when I'm doing readings for other people. Then I have the ones that are in here that I'll go to when I need, and then I have a whole other container that I only use for teaching purposes. They are not, I don't read with them. I'm just using them as examples when I'm teaching and doing things in classes. So it's been eye-opening for me to notice the number of decks that I have, the number of decks that I actually use on a regular basis, and the number of decks that I have, I love, and I don't use, right? Like, so it's
Mhm.
really sort of, eye-opening. The second thing it has done is it has reminded me how much I love reading tarot for myself, for others. Like it just when I'm going through the cards to kind of put them out to take pictures of them or whatever, I'm reconnecting to read past readings I've done for people with the decks, or like just things are coming back flooding and like remembering what I was like as a baby professional tarot reader, like the first time somebody paid me for a tarot reading and I was like, I can't believe someone paid me to do this thing that's so exciting that I love so much. All right, so it's just been really, it's been like a little trip down memory lane. I am a couple of days behind on the posting because, well, life. And I wanted to do it in real time with everybody else. I wasn't like
Yeah, scheduling it out.
yeah, scheduling it out.
Yeah.
So it has me a little bit behind, but I feel okay with that. I'm not, I'm not perfect, not trying to be. And also I want people to see what it looks like to be a real live person who has a real life going on back here, who also has a practice, has a tarot practice, both personally and professionally, and what that looks like. And it's not, some days it's messy and it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So it's also made me go, again, here's another full transparency moment. Y'all don't judge me out there in the world. I have decks that still have shrink wrap on them. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it is time to make a decision. You're either going to open this deck and you're going to use it, or you're going to gift this deck, give it away. So I haven't announced this yet, but I have been just amassing. I have a stack, and looks like there's 6 decks over there that still have shrink wrap on them that I'm like, I think I'm going to do some giveaways on my Instagram.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, because I don't need them for the sake of having them. So it's been eye-opening. It's just really helped me. Um, in a lot of ways, I think I've rekindled a love for some things. Like I see Jay is showing the Margaret Petersen deck, and when I got that deck early on in my sort of professional deck reading, reading for others. And that deck made me think I was not a good tarot reader. I was like, I
Ooh.
don't know what I am seeing here. I can't read this. I'm getting nothing. It was just like, because I read very intuitively, then I go to sort of the analytical symbolic, but I start intuitive as a reader. And this deck, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Right. And so revisiting it now for this challenge, I was like, why was I so hard on myself about this deck? I know exactly what I'm seeing here, right? But it's because I've had a decade to
Yes.
hone my intuition,
Yeah.
my intuitive reading skills, right? So revisiting that deck made me go, oh my gosh, look at how much I've grown as a reader,
Yeah.
as a practitioner. So yeah, it's been a lot of things. And I'm probably going to do another something like this. I've got a couple people who've emailed me and like, are you going to do this for Oracle decks? And I'm like, maybe I will. We'll see. Not next month, people, but eventually.
Yeah, we've been
It's
talking about how to start bringing oracles into
Mhm.
Deck Connectors Club. Like, we're like, should we do a week where there's, a month of oracles, or should we do 3 tarots a month, one oracle? Kind of something's got to give with. I've got a whole thing with oracles right
I
now.
was going to say it's hard with Oracle because tarot has a system, right?
Mm-hmm.
78 cards. Even if a creator takes some liberties and adds a few extra cards, changes the name of the suits, even if they take liberties, there's still a structure in which they are typically working. Oracle's all over the place. You'll get an Oracle deck. It may have 35 cards, maybe it has 38, maybe it has 44, maybe it's got 72 or 85, or right, like it is. It's just there's no, so it can be trickier to kind of do something that where you're trying to frame it around Oracle because somebody might be using a deck with 20 cards and somebody might be using a deck with 70 cards. So yeah, it can be tricky.
Yeah, and I think it's just that the lack of structure that makes me like I'm just really working to figure out my relationship with oracles and to kind of deepen that,
Yeah.
because Jay had done this tag that was called only one deck, like if you could only keep one deck, and the rules were like one tarot and one oracle. And when I went through my oracle decks, I literally thought there's not a single one of these that I can't live without. Like
Oh, interesting.
there's some that are really really great, but like
Mhm.
I would much rather have two tarot decks than and like I
Start
could
with
like use
Oracle.
them as an oracle or something. Like, so I'm trying to kind of consciously explore my
Mhm.
relationship with the lack of structure, and being someone who's like, I'm a double Capricorn, like I'm very
Same. Sun and moon, baby. In
oh
fact,
oh
wow.
my gosh.
I'm
I have a stellium in Capricorn. Let's just name that.
I'm moon and rising. So this makes sense because Jamie definitely has an astrological type. So if you're in this circle, you got some Capricorn in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
But so I love structure, right? And like rules and like a system and organization and all of that stuff. And oracles are just like, we're not doing any of that. And so I have to work a little bit harder. And that's just a focus of mine
Mhm.
right now, is I've got to work a little harder to connect in that
Yeah.
area.
I love the phrase conscious exploration. I love that. And I think, yeah, it's funny because I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm like, oh, what's I never really think about or talk about is that I actually started reading with Oracle cards. I did a whole Oracle card certification. I did the whole, before I really embraced tarot, I really did. And now I look at my Oracle decks and I'm like, why do I have so many of these? Like, what?
What do
Because
you do? What do you guys do anyway?
at this point, I really only use them for clarifiers. Like
Mhm.
if I'm working with a client one-on-one and they are really struggling with an imagery on a card, on a tarot card, or they're just not, and I'll go, let's pull a clarifier. Let's just grab an oracle deck, a goddess deck, right? And I feel like it lands a little softer, especially if
Mm.
it's a new client that hasn't worked with me before. I will soften some of it with oracle
Mhm.
cards, but I also have some oracle card decks that pack punches that are like sometimes a little more tough love than tarot can be, so And just to be clear, if there's any newbies out there, tarot isn't always tough love. Like I read tarot for not just when things in my life are in upheaval or chaos, or I need answers and I'm like, life is what does the tarot say? I also come to tarot when I'm having an amazing day and I'm like, how do I sustain this? Give
Mm.
me some guidance around sustaining this feeling and this energy, you know? So yeah, I just want to name that.
Yeah, I love that. It's great.
Kyla, have you seen this deck?
I have that deck. I
Okay, what do you think of this deck?
So here's a funny story. I am a soul collage practitioner, and for the longest time, I struggled with collage decks because soul collage had me wired as like I'm looking at somebody's pieces of their soul, right? And so I struggled with collage decks. I got this deck and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is one of the best collage decks I've seen." Like it because they did something differently, I think. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
This deck is it actually answered three of your prompts for me. So this was one of my most recent deck purchases
Okay.
that also feels like a hug and
Uh-huh.
is good for ancestor reading. But one of the things that you said that I felt like really stood out to me, you like a deck that does something different. The art brings something different to the table.
Yeah.
And I think that Jory, the artist who created these collages, by making them through foraging elements in nature to create the collage and then channeling the images and the messages, like this
Yeah.
is what I want in something different. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like this would be right up your alley.
Yes, I have it. And the thing I was going to say about it, when I got it, it took me a while to open it because I was like, why did I buy this deck? It's collage. I don't really like collage decks. And then I opened it and I was like, oh, maybe I do like collage decks. I've just been looking at the wrong kind of collage decks, right? Like I've
Mhm.
been, yeah. And so her color palette, her like, there's some imagery in here that felt really spoke to my like mixed media artist heart, where I could
Yeah.
see some of her, I could see her like mixed media fingerprints on this, right? I could see the playing with paper and the manipulating of paper. And I don't know, and also, let me just say something about collage decks, y'all. The amount of time it takes for people to cut out these pieces and make
Yes.
these, I am in awe of them. Just like I'm in awe of Jamie's felt tarot. I'm like, how many
Yeah.
hours per card, you know? So
Yes.
yeah, so collage decks really get a lot of respect from me because I just understand the work that went into doing that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And not for nothing, the eco cardstock that this is on feels like a hug in your hands.
Yes, it is really good. And I'm somebody who's a little bit of a snob about the paper of my deck.
I'm not
So
a little bit of a snob. I'm the biggest snob there is on it. It's the hill that I will die on.
Yeah, we both are cardstock snobs, Jay more so than myself, but it does matter.
yeah.
It really matters.
That Eight of Pentacles right there. That card is the first time I saw that card, I was like, oh yeah, right. The number of times I've sat in just watercolored circles on paper,
Hmm.
right? And it is like quintessential Eight of Pentacles work of where you're just,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I am
Over and
practicing,
over.
I'm going to master this thing,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
she did a great job with
Yeah,
this.
it's beautiful. It really is.
Yeah. I don't read with it enough, so thank you for bringing it. I think I need to pull it into
I'm having a autumn love affair with it right now. So
it does have a good autumn feel. All right, you're gonna make me pull that one out and work with.
hey, at
Yeah.
least it's one you already have. So
Yes, yes,
And I think that going back to something you said more early on in our conversation about how, there's only so many days in a year, and there's only so many readings you can do in one day, even if you have nothing else to do that day. And like, you're like, I could spend all day reading tarot. Like, you can't. There's only so many readings that you can give for yourself, let's say for self reading,
yeah.
without the tarot being like, what are you doing here? Right? Like you gotta
Mhm.
stop. Like
Yeah.
for me, it's always like go to bed. But
Listen, it's funny because I just got out of a call having a conversation with a group of women that sort of like a little mastermind that I lead. And we were talking about rituals, routines, sort of like what are your practices? What are the things that how do you structure your day around, tarot, astrology, human design, all the
Yeah,
things that we
including
do.
it in your
Exactly.
daily life, right?
Right. And the thing is, like for instance, on a new moon day, like today, I am doing a new moon spread, but then I also have my daily card pull. And then I'm like, how many spreads does one need in a day? Like you just, right, like how much at some point you got to get on with the living of the day to see if the cards are actually giving you some good guidance for the day. Like if you just stay glued to that, to the pulling of cards and the sort of being with them. I mean, you've got to step out of that piece so that you can integrate and implement at some point, So, and that is all coming from somebody who loves big spreads. Oh, give me a 10 card spread any day. Um, and because then I'm going to linger with my journal and I'm just going to sit there for hours and look at it until I get snapped back and I'm like, oh, right, life is actually happening around me. Like,
Yes.
I gotta go cook some dinner or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think like the limit for me is kind of around 3. Like I kind of like a
That,
little
yeah.
morning, noon, and night if I can get it all in there, or like a different type of reading sprinkled in. Um, But also something that you just said made me think about. I was just telling Jay before we got on this call that I took my kids to see the Gabby's Dollhouse movie yesterday, which was a wild experience to take in the visuals of it. But there is a message in it that really resonated with something that I've discovered about myself and tarot through the eyes of children, which is, and like the premise of the Gabby's Dollhouse movie is really that as we age, we stop playing and to not do that. And something that I discovered this summer was that, like, I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I watch them play in this imaginative world. And I remember doing that as a child. And what I discovered is that, like, that's what tarot is for me. It's this, like, way to disassociate. And I don't mean that in the negative context that it's usually said in. I think
Mhm.
that disassociation is something that we naturally are wired to do when you watch children play. They're disassociating from reality and they're in a world of creativity. And as we age and our culture and society, it's easy to move away from that, or to be taught that that's not valuable use of time, or at least we're not taught that we need that, right? And then I think that what did end up happening for me was that I would disassociate in more unhealthy ways with like substances or television, which I still do the television, but like, I would want to zone out or get out of reality for a little bit, but I didn't have a constructive way to do that. And tarot has given me that, where I can go into this world of the cards, not only in this like beautiful artistic world, but there's a creativity in connecting with my own intuition and using it as divination and like the spiritual aspect to it. But to me, it does very much feel like the same thing as like creative play and like
Yes.
a magic to
Yes. I was just getting ready to say the imagination is just us being with our magic, right? Like the
yes.
word magic's right there in the word. And listening to you talk about, I'm like, oh, yes, that is it. Tarot connects us, has the ability, if we allow it, to connect us back to our magic, our inner wisdom, our own inner
Yes.
voice. Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, so for me, that's something that I want to build into my day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But even in doing that, to just kind of bring it full circle to where this all started somewhere way back there, like there's only so many decks in one year that could even kind of be used, right? And so, like, how do we find a balance with that? And I think that's something that I'm still working to figure out and to find and kind of refine and hone my own collection by connecting to the decks to realize where they fit in
Yeah.
to kind of curate, right? It's
Mm.
curation.
Yeah.
like curate my own collection. And that's like something that Jay is very good at. Like,
Mhm.
We spend a lot of time talking about that too, just amongst the two of us. Like, I think that's something that came to me over time. You have to witness the number of decks out on the market to realize that you don't need all of them, and that not every deck that's put out there is made for everyone. And having the wisdom to know when you receive a deck, okay, this one just wasn't meant for me, and then being able to take that, and if it doesn't resonate, move it along to some place that it will resonate more. But it takes time to hone that. Like, you haven't been deck collecting all that long. I've been since that Starchild tarot. Like, I've seen the cycles of the market, and I'm not afraid to rehome a deck that doesn't speak to my soul. Like, if a deck doesn't resonate with me, I'm not going to ever use it more than one that does. So it needs to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good point too. I love the curating because to me, curating a collection means that you are cultivating a relationship with it, but you're also culling the herd, so to speak, right?
Yes.
You are, yeah. So you're not keeping everything that comes in. You're being discerning about what stays and what goes. And I think that that for me, I've never sat down and sort of written it out. Maybe I should, I don't know, but in my mind, I do have sort of a list of criteria, sort of like my check marks. When I get a deck, how it shuffles is the first thing I experience, like how it feels in my hand
Yes.
makes,
Tactile experience.
yeah, it makes a difference to me. Then when I shuffle it, if it shuffles well, that makes a difference. And then when I do a deck interview, which is the first thing I do with every new deck, if that deck is basically telling me we're not a match, I don't even bother. Like
Yes.
I typically it goes into the teaching box. And I'm like, and then I never look at it again. And I have several like that, sadly, that just I thought they were going to be amazing decks. And then I got them and I tried to read with them and they just weren't, they weren't.
fell flat.
Yeah.
It can be so disappointing too, especially with the price of indie decks being what they are. Like, it can feel like a blow when you get this deck in that you're so excited about, and you were like, oh my God, this one's going to be great. It's going to do all this stuff for me. It's going to make me the person that I always wanted to be. And then it comes and you're like, oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. So really quickly, I know we're probably really close to the end here, but I just need to ask a quick question. Jay, every deck that you were bringing out had these beautiful, lovely wraps and bags they were in. Are these all bags and wraps that you make, or I'm just being nosy and they're so
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah. So I only put decks in bags that come in like really disastrous tuck boxes that fall apart,
Okay.
or they don't come with a box at all. Like, this one didn't come with a box. But
Okay.
I knit these and I call them my tarot tube socks because they're made of sock yarn.
Oh, I love that. They're
Yeah.
beautiful. They're beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much. If you have a deck that needs a little bit of an outfit, let me know and I can knit one up for you.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I mean, I adore this. Every time you were like unwrapping it, and that's another thing, right? Is like I have a couple of decks that I treat so precious, and I realize that in this challenge, like the Brady Tarot.
Yeah.
I have treated the Brady Tarot like it is like I don't open it because that box is so exquisite. It's in that wooden box.
Uh-huh.
And then the wooden box is like lined with this cotton muslin. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm supposed to take it out and use it. Like I have that. And I'm like, I got to do better, right? I need real world kind of like, yeah. And I have a lot of cool pouches and things from places, but yeah, that, yes. So that caught my eye and my attention. So thank,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for
Of
sharing.
course. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Kyla. That was very kind.
Yeah, you're welcome. Beautiful.
I feel like deck storage and organization could be it's a
Next episode.
whole
Yes.
episode. Because when you were talking about the process of moving, right, and having all of the decks in boxes and then putting them all away, like that's something that I have been talking to Jay about with like I only have so much space. Like I'm trying to keep my collection so that it it is accessible and organ in a way that doesn't give me anxiety or stress because the Capricornness, right? Where I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. A number
it's
of times I've reordered them because I'm like, the sizes aren't like, why is this? I could probably squeeze two more in here if this was shorter. Yeah, all the things.
Yeah, so I love hearing about how people, the different systems that people have of like storing their decks or keeping them or like what gets a bag and what doesn't. And it's just fascinating, all of it.
That's a great topic for our next episode. So we're going to be having you back.
I would love that so much. I have lots of different ways that I store and have stored them over the years. So I'd love to talk about that. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, do we have any final thoughts or questions or anything? I mean, I think we covered like a good chunk of what it's like to be in the practice of deck connecting, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
my sort of final thoughts would just be at the end of the day, the decks you connect with are all that matters. Like just pay attention to them, bring in new ones, see if they fit into your collection. But I think at the end of the day, it really is about your connection to a deck. If it speaks to you, if it doesn't, if you can read with it well, if you can't, or if you just like the imagery on it. And that's what you get from it is 78 pieces of beautiful art. So yeah, I think we just have to figure out how to be with our decks more is kind of what this, and that's what my challenge was all about, is just be with your decks, even if it's just for a day.
And I think so my final thoughts are really about the community, right? Because the more time that I spend talking to people in the tarot community or people who are avid tarot readers personally or professionally, the more I realize that this is a very common and universal experience for all of us to go through like oh my gosh, like I want all of the decks and now I bought too many decks and I have too many decks and I need not so many decks and I'm not using these and like all of those spirals that we can take ourselves down in our heads and how much emotion that can bring up, right? Like what you were saying about like I was feeling bad about myself or like there's can be some like shame rooted in the process of deck collecting
Mhm.
and not connecting or whatever it might be, but just that we're not alone in those experiences and how nice and satisfying and like valuable it is to share that with other people and to be vulnerable and talk about like how we are all really passionate about this same shared thing and that there are struggles within that passion that we can kind of like lean on community for support.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I'm nodding along. Can't see it, but I am.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really, really fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later.
Bye. Signing out. Talk to you later.